Welcome to the OC. I'm Phil, and this is my co-host Corey, and tonight we are talking about the Jonestown Massacre. And yes, it was a terrible fucking event. Terrible.
It is. However, I think when they say call it a massacre, that word massacre invokes certain imagery, right? You would think of people. I mean, clearly, if it's a massacre, you had people running through with machetes, hacking people up, right?
This was not the case. This was a mass suicide. And we'll get into more detail, I guess, about that. But before 9/11, this was the biggest mass suicide or mass casualties for Americans, which
in a
was
single non-natural event. That's the
term. Is that
that's non-natural?
Non-natural.
Lots of Americans have died. I guess there's been more than 900 Americans died at one time in natural events like earthquakes, tsunamis, and forest fires. But
right, but as far as like induced death with an agenda, and this is where we get the saying, don't drink the Kool-Aid, which wasn't actually Kool-Aid. What was it, Corey?
It was Flavor Aid, and it's often don't drink the Kool-Aid. It says drink the. It's actually usually people say you're drinking the Kool-Aid. They don't say don't drink the Kool-Aid. It's usually not a cautionary tale.
I always say don't drink the Kool-Aid. I'm fucking dead serious about that. Don't do it.
Where when I've worked in high tech, right? You get part of that group think going on, and it's like, somebody's drinking the Kool-Aid, and you'll have this with organizations where they do their weird, their
culty
mission
shit.
statement. Well, so IBM was very much like that. IBM, Big Blue. It was, were IBM.
Fastenal was bleed blue. That was their thing. Yep. Everything was blue shirts. They own a NASCAR team. They were, but it was, you go to conventions. They fly all over the fucking place, and you would, bleed blue.
Like, but that was IBM. The blue.
IBM was bleed blue or Big Blue.
It was Big Blue, but they would do the bleed blue thing too. They would go off. Yeah. Oh, and it was so. The funny thing with IBM was it was more relevant in the 70s before the 80s hit, right? Because in the 70s you had a job for life if you got on with IBM.
Yeah, you
gave your all because they took care of you. You were part of the family. 80s hit was not a good time for IBM.
People are bailing everywhere.
Well, they couldn't sell enough mainframes, right? 80s, 90s. It's like what? You don't want to buy 10 mainframes?
Weird.
Desktops.
Weird. So there was a mass suicide, over 900 people, 300 of which were children. And the fact that I did not know this was a little bit disturbing to me. But 2/3 of the people were of African American descent. I was blown away. I was like,
I was not aware of how socially progressive Jim Jones was, because he was very much.
Well, we will get into that
integration.
For a lot of what Jim Jones was, then you look at some of the things that he did, and yes, he was a very progressive individual for equal race rights. And
he was also a dirty communist.
He was also a Marxist, dirty, filthy communist.
Apparently.
People didn't like, oh no, there's no apparently. He was a fucking tried true communist. Well, he believed in it. But so then he, we're going to kind of just, I think just kind of go over. So he forms, the People's Temple. That's what you're basically, it was formed in, when was it formed? In 55. And we'll get into his sort of how he got involved in the church. I think that's really important. I think that like he had a lot of factors that were stepping him in the right way. Like a lot of things fell in place. Did you find that when you were reading this? You went, oh, he had a lot of.
It's hard when you're digging through a lot of the information, right?
Yeah.
If you read any of the stuff that's highly critical of him, it's hard not to be critical of Jim Jones.
But his earlier years, like you gotta remember, this happened in so the actual event happens in 78, right? So
I think the 74 was when they set up. So why don't we hear? I think we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, we're getting ahead. But
talk about Jonestown itself. So what is Jonestown?
So Jonestown was it was meant to be basically a communist sort of what do you call that? Utopia. Yeah.
Guess what? It didn't turn out like that. It turned out to the other type of opia,
no,
the dystopia.
It was dystopian. So, but what had happened is, and we'll get into that in a little further detail later when we start talking about him, I think, is that they moved to Guyana, and there was a lot of reasons for that. But one of the main reasons was it was considered like one of the safest places for nuclear, like in the event of a nuclear world strike, Guyana was considered one of the safest places to be. That was, and one of his deciding factors.
Issues you saw a couple times, right? Where this fear of imminent apocalypse. Now, mind you, they all commit suicide at the end, folks. So we're spoiling the story for you.
Yeah.
It does not work out.
Right.
A doomsday, they're not, but they weren't really a doomsday cult.
They weren't, but they were. Like, I mean,
they were, yes, yeah.
It's hard to put your finger, because these were not all stupid people. No. And I think that was one of the things that I learned most about this, is that I think these were, God-fearing individuals who wanted a better life and were told that they would get a better life. And then they fucking end up in Guyana after selling all of their possessions and all of their worldly things and giving that money to Jim Jones, who is their fearless leader, and him pissing through that money. And then they start to have hardships, like not having enough food.
Well, they had hardships before. They were set up, so they moved to Guyana. The 500 people went there for 500 congregation members went there first to establish Jonestown in the jungle. Now, fun fact. Did you know Guyana was not necessarily their first choice? They had two choices.
I thought it was Brazil. I thought, well, it was.
Oh no, it's even worse. It's even worse.
Even worse than Brazil.
Even
no, I didn't know about the second
it's
choice.
Even worse. So they had two plans for immediate action because of, when we'll get into this about what was going on in the States, why they moved, why they set up Jonestown.
Yeah.
Canada was one of the options.
Oh, well, isn't it good that they didn't fucking come here?
Well, I know, right?
Even though,
could you imagine Northern Ontario or something?
Well, hey, we would have probably taken them with open arms and embraced their fucking craziness. Who knows? But yeah, well, this is like, it all started in Indiana, right? This is where he started his first congregation, which was more like your Pentecostal sort of church type idea. Like,
very Christian, very much
Christian,
orthodoxy. Maybe not orthodox. They were, let's say, orthodoxy Christian in the sense that they might have been the Pentecostals, but there was no doubt about who the Messiah was. The man upstairs.
The line was pretty clear that he was going to preach the word of God and all that good stuff. But what he did, which was very unique, was that he wanted to include all ethnicities. He did not believe that the church was meant to be white. He believed that and this was from a young age, even, that he had this really strong moral compass of, which is weird to say, but it's fucking true. He saw that that these races being shit on was bad, and that he wanted to allow them to desegregate.
He was ahead of his time in the sense that
he really was.
Racial integration. He said, well, there's no reason for us to be separate. Now, it's funny you mentioned, so since you brought it up, I have to touch on this.
Sure, go ahead.
As a young man, apparently he liked to lock his playmates in the loft of his family barn so they would be his captive audience. He performed experiments on animals and conducted funerals for them.
Yeah, I heard that.
Apparently the reason why he became evil was his need to control people, his deceit, and his anger towards people who would betray or abandon would usually get the better of him. Well, so all these positive things about going off and, the social equality, the racial justice, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
He believed that, but he also believed, hey, you know what? I'll fucking kill you if you screw with me.
Fucking kill you. Yeah. So he's an enigma. And everything I read is kind of like, okay, yeah, he was really good. Oh, and then he was not so good. It was this weird tipping. As good as he could be, he could also be as evil as
it was almost, I don't want to say bipolar, because it wasn't that. He wouldn't suddenly flip.
No,
it was literally, you're walking around the pyramid, and you're seeing another side to it. You're like, crap, I'm seeing the bad side now. Apparently, he was really impressed when Hitler killed himself to avoid his enemies capturing him and mutilating his corpse.
Yeah, that
he
was
super impressed with that.
He was a big fan of, I don't know if he was a big fan of Hitler so much as he was a fan of communism. He believed social.
And to say communism is actually, he was okay in Marxism, the US in particular. Yeah.
In Marxism in its own right was meant to be, a good thing. It wasn't never meant to be a bad thing. But do you hear that?
I do.
Get out of here.
Ma, I'm recording my podcast, Ma.
Get that cat out of here. The fucking whiner.
Stay classy, San Francisco.
What time are we at? 34 minutes. Anyway, where the fuck was I?
Okay, we were talking about Marxism.
Oh yeah, Marxism. Okay. So yeah, he really did believe in Marxism. That was where, he believed that everybody could be equal and everyone could share everything.
But with him in control, funny enough, you look at a lot of the Marxist things.
Exactly what happens.
Exactly what happens, right? You always got to have somebody who's the visionary that sets things up, and what they're supposed to do is give that back.
Yeah, but they don't.
They don't.
They don't. They want to pull it in. They're like
set themselves up with their
Their like, I'm gonna have sex with all of you now because you worship me. Oh yeah, but everybody else, nobody has sex, just me. It's weird that they do this. This is the culty thing, right? Like, you look at David Koresh, you look at.
It didn't start culty.
It did not start culty at all. It started as like you say, like a good thing. It started as, hey, we're going to desegregate. If you're Jewish, if you're Black, Muslim, whatever, you can come and pray or come and learn about this church and be part of it. There's no judgment here.
The church itself. So the People's Temple ran social and medical programs for the needy, including a free dining hall, drug rehabilitation, and legal aid services. And that whole message of social equity and racial justice.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Well, and he called it, what do you call it? Social, or Christian socialism. That was
Christian. Yes.
That was how he described what he wanted to do. He wanted to help everybody. He felt as though that, like for medical, for rehabilitation, for drugs or alcohol, he was progressive. Like he was not a stupid guy. He was a smart guy, but he used that.
Did you know how he raised money to start his own church?
Is that where the fucking like the gospel shit where they like go, oh, there's Jim in the audience.
Oh no, that something.
Remember, he met that guy. He met the fucking and that was one of the factors that changed his fucking life was he met those guys. But no, tell me more.
Apparently he raised funds to start his own church.
Yeah.
He sold monkeys door to door. I don't even know
now that you fucking say that. He sold monkeys. Yes.
Live monkeys. I don't even know how you would break into that business. Seriously, think about it.
What about my monkey?
Like, what do you do? Well, I don't really walk up. Hey,
what's his name?
I got all those monkeys.
Curious George.
But where do you get them from? Like, seriously,
I've got a bag of monkeys.
About this to know where you would get and say, you know what?
It's funny you say that because I'm like, yeah, that sounds strangely familiar. But he also believed he saw that, hey, like I can make money by, making people believe something that's not there. And that's where these faith healers came in. Right. So before he actually got his own temple, he started to, I can't remember the guy's name. It's in my notes a little further down. So, I mean, I haven't really gotten into him, but
I don't know that fellow's name.
I do have it. I just
know he went off and at one point he took on the title of the prophet and would do these faith healings himself and claim to have psychic powers.
Oh yeah, but then he started to fucking believe this shit too. I think
that he had the power.
Maybe he believed at the start. I mean, we want to go off and say Jim Jones was this.
I thought he could heal.
Machiavellian mastermind, and some of the stuff you read about him kind of suggests that. But
no, I think he was flying by the seat of his pants. to be honest with you. I think he got lucky. People believed he was very charming and charismatic.
And the charismatic part. And this is when you look at, there are so many people seeking direction in life. And when you can confidently give them a direction,
for sure,
and convince them that
they're good, convince them that they're somebody and they're important and they're loved, and that's what he did until it was time to like, oh yeah, and now you're gonna do what I want you to do.
And again, it's only if you crossed him, right? Apparently, if he did what he said, he was great.
Yeah, like if you were like to have sex with him when he told you, men or women, because he didn't care.
Got to picture him and his family. He's got a lot of adopted kids. It's basically the United Nations.
He also adopted, African American kids. He adopted a Native American child.
Yeah, I want to say from the picture, we've got it looks like I want to say like a Korean Indonesian or something.
Yeah. So it's a big family. It's a melting pot, right? Yeah. So but he talked that he walked the talk or walked the walk.
I
think he believed it, because everything you read, like this guy got citations from like mayors and stuff for
okay, let's talk about that since you're touching on this, right? Okay, let's talk about the whole. At one time, he was the head of the housing commission in San Francisco.
Yeah, which is a big deal.
And Harvey Milk.
Yeah.
Do you know who that is?
Yeah, I saw the movie.
Right? He was a big fan of, he was actually, I believe, I don't know if he was ever a member of the People's Temple, but he certainly approved of the work.
He approved, and that was one of the reasons that they...
Angela Davis?
No.
Black eye. I believe she's a black icon.
Oh, yes. I believe
she
was, because he was fucking saying, like, look at, no segregation. He actually would go to bat for people like who wanted to ride the bus, who wanted to go to a fucking public school.
Like the Black Panthers.
And the Black Panther, he was still pretty white.
But they did have
they had a little respect for him. They
had support for him.
Yeah, because he wasn't afraid. That's one thing about Jim Jones. Not afraid. Wow. He didn't give a fuck.
If you were on all the Quaaludes, if you were on that many Quaaludes, my friend, you wouldn't be afraid of anything either.
This dude had he was not caring about nothing. He was. But let's about Jim Jones. I'd like to kind of go through. I did a little bit about. So
sure. Let's pivot to Jim.
Of Irish and Welsh descent. Right, his mother was both part Cherokee, so he claimed that he was part Cherokee as well.
You mean James Warren Jones?
It was James Warren Jones,
JWJ,
not to be confused with James Earl Jones, who was probably the best voice ever.
Yeah, that's right. You should talk to CNN.
And tonight, his father was disabled from military service, which this leads to this fucking horrific childhood that he endured under his in the 30s. So his father fought in World War I. Basically his dad was due to being disabled wasn't able to provide much for the family, hence they were poor as fuck. And then he gets taken under this woman's wing. Her name is Myrtle Kennedy.
Okay.
And she's the wife of a pastor, and he is like just a sponge, and he is soaking up all of this information. And he basically develops this attachment to her, and he's going to church 5 times a week. He's deep. And he's only like 11 or 12 years old.
And this is what we were talking about earlier, that I honestly believe he believed in what he was doing. He may have seen opportunities, but it wasn't the idea of it.
He was a child at this point. And and this woman was a little bit more, her husband was like a pastor, and I think, what was it called? The Nazarene Church.
Nazarene Church, yes.
Yeah. So, and then he got his involvement was from there, right? So you're talking now into, he's developing as a young man, or as a child, like a teenager or a child. And here's where he's going. He's getting attention. His father is he's not well. And anyway, his father was also part of the Ku Klux Klan.
I didn't read that, but again,
he was actually a pretty high up member in the
irony would be pretty strong.
So it was, and that was the other thing, that Jim made friends with black kids, right? And what happens? Well, his dad is like, Jim, no. So he recounts that his father argued over the issue of race, and that what was it here? Oh yeah, he would not allow any of the black kids into the house. Said, nope, they don't come around here. Get them off my property. And he was vulgar with them, right? So, and that stuck with him over the years. And I think this is where you're seeing, the Jim Jones of going, all right, I don't want to see segregation. I want to see everybody treated equally, right?
Integration, the other gration,
and then in 52 he became a pastor himself. He followed this route, and he knew that was what he wanted to do. And he became a Methodist. I'm not sure what that means, but
I'm not familiar with the various
form of
sects
Christianity.
of Christianity, but it was still Christianity. Yeah. So
it was,
and this call plays into the Christianity, the Christian socialism idea, right?
Well, I think he wasn't there yet. I think he was like, okay, I can be heard. So this is when he starts to find, he basically joins, he witnessed a guy doing faith healing.
Yeah, right? This is the healing revival.
Yeah, the Seventh-day Baptist Church. Yeah, those Baptists, so crazy bunch. And he saw what happened, which was it attracted people. He loved to be able to do. So I never read about him locking kids in the loft.
Okay, so to comment on that, this is something about one of his friends from back in the day said Jimmy was a weird kid, and
Jimmy's a weird kid, but Jimmy liked to be heard, and Jimmy liked to talk. So that doesn't surprise me, right? Like, you're gonna listen to me spew.
I've locked the doors. You're captive audience now.
Yeah, you're just gonna kind of stay there while I talk, and then you don't move. As he's, locking people out. So he observes that this guy is like talking the word of God, saying he's going to heal people, and making money, something he doesn't have.
Yeah, and again, not making money directly, right? This is all, they're not necessarily going up and paying him for the healing, but it's that idea that your church is making the money, but if you're in charge of the church.
That's right. And this guy's name, and I have it here. So Joseph Madison Ross, and he was one of the leaders. Did you read about him?
Yeah, Joseph Madison B-O-Z. B-O-Z-E, right? I like to call it Bozo.
Yeah, old Bozo kind of taught him the ropes, right? So Jones sticks with this guy for a while, and like till 56, and where Jones is like, okay, and that's when he basically says, I'm going to do my own healing convention. Right.
And this is where they start the People's Temple. So after 56, that's when the People's Temple gets set up.
Well,
and then he becomes more activist.
The Miracles of Faith Healing. Sounds beautiful. And he hones his skills as a liar, because that's what he's doing. He knows full fucking well he's not. So this is where they have this little gag, and you've seen this, where like the faith healer. So they get names. The people that are taking people in go, okay, well, what, their names, get the name tag. So is Jim in the audience? Jim? Oh, hello. You've got the gout? Right? I'm going to fix you up, Jim. Real good. So come here. And then they do their fucking thing. Does Jim get fixed? Who fucking knows? But he's going to say he did, because
often if you're at these things, there's a good chance you're there because you are a believer,
or you're like, okay, well, yeah. Anyway,
do you want to be the guy who goes off and tells Jim Jones he did not heal you? Because clearly the problem doesn't lie with Jimmy.
That's right.
He's divined by God. Clearly you are a sinful, horrible person.
Horrible.
You're lucky we don't murder you right now.
Deserve every minute of being murdered. That's what I hear. Anyway, that's what Jim Jones would say. So following this big convention, his first church is the People's Temple Christian Church Full Gospel. Later,
what is with names like that?
That's a long fucking name.
Exactly. Like,
imagine that as a website.
It's like DPRK, right? The Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
Wow. Just could say it's just Korea. I don't know.
North. Just call it North Korea. Yeah. Let's just call it North Korea. How about that?
So the name was later shortened to the People's Temple. For good fucking reason. Jim, nobody can fucking remember it. Fuck. Doesn't fit in a phone book. Anyway.
That's right. Our shirts that we write it on doesn't work.
Yeah. So anyway, he gets a commission in 1960 from Charles Boswell, who was like a human rights commission. He gets like this fucking director of the local. Yeah.
The housing authority. It was the housing authority, right?
He's appointed director of the local human rights commission.
Okay. I thought it was the housing authority,
and that's in Indianapolis.
Because he's at this point.
He did the housing authority that was in San Francisco.
Yes. At the point you're talking about, he is full activist at this.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
This is not just
it's
him
helping him.
Oh, it's certainly not hurting him, right?
He's
going off. He's attracting all these young people who
look at how he dresses. Look at how he dresses. He's such a machismo. He's got his fucking little sunglasses on, his little fucking hair, like an Elvis wannabe, whatever. Yeah. So anyway, but you're right. He's eating it up, right? Like, I mean, I think.
Now, whether again, he's consistent regarding. So let's look in Jim's mind here. Let's try and peel back Jim's skull and say, okay,
sure.
Do you believe, for example, that he was a full-on racial justice guy?
I believe he was.
I believe so too.
I mean, I don't like to believe that, but I think that he was.
I think he was. Now, do you believe that he was in for the whole social equity? Like, do you believe that he honestly?
I think so. I think at the beginning he thought he could make a difference, and as everybody else who does this thinks they can do.
That's right. And then they learn the dark truth. Okay, so now let's talk about his faith healing and psychic powers.
This is where I think things start to. He starts to learn that, he can't get what he wants by trying to be good, but he can get what he wants by being manipulative.
So there is that descent, right? So this is where you see a bit of the rejection of the tenets of Christianity, right? So he talks about the Christian socialism. So 60s talks about the Christian socialism thing, right? Whatever the hell that is. And
he professes to be a communist.
Definitely left. Like we're talking, he buried the needle left.
He full, and this is one of the reasons why he had to leave Indiana. Right? Is one, he's, Indiana is like not very. It's very conservative.
Nope.
It's not left at all.
No. So he heads to San Francisco, right?
Where it's very progressive.
It's very everything.
Yeah. So it's okay to be black. Still problems, but it's better.
But you're with a bunch of other people who also have problems, right? So you've got your
gay, homosexual community. You've
got your women's lib. You've got all this stuff. A bunch of people who are currently having problems who have basically been in the same area, which the message of social equality and racial justice would echo.
Yeah. Well, and he started to get hated by the whites. Plain and simple. Like swastikas are being painted on his door. He's being threatened. There's verbal altercations. A lot of business owners are like, I don't want to let. So if they wouldn't let blacks into their business, Jim would go there, and be like, why aren't you letting? He'd harass these white.
Very
shop
activist.
owners.
Very. Oh activist.
Yeah. But he also knew that he would get a lot of feedback from that. He also got a huge following of the colored group, African American, and then other individuals, Latino, and
it wasn't just
cultural.
So the bulk of at the end of the day,
it was a whole bunch of ethnicities. It wasn't, but
there was African American.
Yeah, and I think
or Black Americans. What is the proper term
nowadays? I don't know. I mean,
I don't want to say African Americans anymore because, that's like me saying I'm an Irish Canadian. I'm so not.
I don't know, and I don't want to offend anyone. But
I don't know either. It's raw ignorance here, folks.
It's yeah. Well, no, it's the Black community. I mean, we have friends who are, there's a lot of times African, because their origins were not from here.
No, but
and that's
neither
why
are
you hear
ours.
that, like it's African American. It's
I know, but I don't think that's, I don't know if that's the politically correct term to use, because again, we're talking 10 generations, right?
Yeah.
This is not.
I don't know. I honestly
recent.
don't. I honestly don't know.
If you know what we should be called, I want to say Black Americans, Black in America. I don't know.
I don't know either.
But it's not even just Black America. Like it's like Canadians. We don't
well,
say
I don't
African
mean to
Canadians.
offend anyone if that's the case.
That's not our intent. I want to Google that right now, but I'm afraid to.
Don't. It's probably a bad idea. We'll wait for people to tell us we're being insensitive. It's always the way. But I don't feel that there's anything to, but maybe there is. I mean, I'm obviously not of color, so
I don't think they like to be called colored. So, but they do. Perhaps. The term is people of color, right?
People of color, yeah.
POC. Yeah,
people of color. Yeah. Unlike us, pale, pasty people.
White's a color.
White's the absence of color.
No. Black is the absence of color. White is all colors.
Oh, no idea. I was trying to be.
Oh, sorry. Did I step on something here, Phil?
I have no idea. Anyway, back to Jim Jones and
Jim. Okay, so he left Indiana and
headed
to San Francisco.
Heads to San Francisco because things are rocking, and he notices that he's got quite a following of people on that East Coast. Like he's getting noticed all over the place.
The People's Temple, I think, at its height had 20,000 is what they're saying. 20,000 followers,
and in a lot of states, right? So you're starting to see these guys like show up.
This is before the internet, folks. So think about this. Anytime you could have more than your little city, that's big.
Yeah, there's no social media. There's no like, oh, hey, I'm doing something crazy and unique. Come and look.
Like there's none Ordered Chaos podcast.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Not our competition, whoever they are.
Yeah, no.
I don't know. We need a rival. We need somebody to be like, them dirt bags. Blech.
Do we really need a rival though?
No, I guess not. But it'd be fun. Just saying. So yeah, he moves to San Francisco. Things are going good for him for the most part. However, he doesn't shut his mouth. And things are starting to look a little and he's changing his ways. Right. So now we're moving into more of the 70s, like the late 60s. Moving into the 70s. So tell me what happens to his ideals of Christianity, because I think you wanted to touch on that. Where does he go with that?
So he really deviates far afield from Christian socialism, right? So as far as what Christian socialism is, it's kind of what you say. You take the basic Christian beliefs and you mix it with socialism.
Sure.
He deviates considerably from that. Again,
that's a hard right. It's a hard right he takes.
Oh, completely. Right. At one point, he openly rejects traditional Christianity and begins to publicly claim that he is God.
He is the Messiah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, once you're at that point, like, we're through the looking glass, folks, that's going to cause all sorts of problems. Yeah. This is where you've heard the saying power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure.
The true saying is what it ought to be is not that power corrupts, power reveals. So you want to find what a person will be, give them power and see what they do with it. And Jimmy Boy, he's doing really well. And the power goes completely to his head. He's claiming psychic powers, that he can cure cancer with a touch, right? He is completely and utterly.
It makes me wonder, though,
cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs at this point.
If he's trying to get to that next level, right? Like if you look at like him as a person, and he's like, okay, I've got X amount of followers. How do I get to that next plateau of followers? Well, I'm not doing it. I'm doing the same thing, but it's not working. So now
I have to step up my game.
I got to step up my game. So now I'm I don't believe he believed that shit. I really don't think so. I think that he did this. This is a lot of show. I'm
curious at what point the heavy drug use starts.
I don't
know if that starts when he moves to Guyana, But
I think because he was high all the time again.
High all the time there.
But I don't know. I didn't really read that he was like a massive drug user.
No, I didn't read that either. Not until now. He was San Francisco. Okay, so let's not kid ourselves.
Well, you're in the land of partying here.
I think he probably, he wanted to be the cool dad pastor, and he's probably out there partying.
Maybe.
Who knows?
I don't know.
But he made a lot of political connections, funny enough. Like I said, the Harvey Milk, right? Angela Davis, these were all.
Yeah. No, he did for sure.
He was a well-respected pillar of the community up until a lot of stuff started to come to light.
Well, and most of this was in Guyana for a lot of so basically
he moved to Guyana. So why did he move from
he didn't actually he went to Brazil first. Right? Did you read about that? So he went to Brazil, him and a bunch of them, and they were basically doing they were helping to build waterways and build homes and all this other shit. And they ended up stopping in Guyana for something. So they went to Brazil. I can't remember the name of the they thought about actually setting up as well in Brazil. That was one of the ideas.
But you know why they left San Francisco, period.
Well, because they're being investigated, right?
8 members defected.
Yeah. And then
all of a sudden you start having these exposés starting to happen. Yeah. And there was the heat was getting turned on.
Yeah. And he wanted to be away from where he could be, prosecuted, because there was also talks of sexual misconducts, right? So,
and apparently murders. There were some people that were found dead that were temple members, and whether or not the two things are related,
I don't know. I didn't get deep enough into it.
I didn't get deep enough either. I don't want to make this the murder podcast.
The murder podcast, yeah. Well, this is in the 60s where, might as well start talking about Guyana and why they moved. I mean, it was big fear of nuclear war.
Yep.
Everybody was living in that bubble of, oh, fuck. Like, is Russia gonna, you're still in the Cold War. It wasn't
just one thing that prompted the move to create a socialist utopia. It was, again, the heat was going on in San Francisco. And by the way, Armageddon's coming, so we might want to be in a good place.
And I think that he fucking really, truly believed that. So in 1962, there was an article in Esquire magazine that said, all right, well, which city, if you were going to have to be in a city, what's the safest place? Which there is no safest place. If it all hell go,
you're delaying the inevitable is what you're doing.
Yeah, you're going to, everything on earth will die. So anyway, this other guy, this William Branham, did you read about him? He would make prophecies. So Jones would follow this guy, like he was like, this dude is fucking legit. So this is where I start to go, well, fuck, is he crazy? Is he a lunatic? There's part of me that's like, he's a fucking lunatic, but is he though? But it's when he believes this kind of shit where he's like, okay, well, he was influenced by this fucking Branham to like move to South America, that was going to be the safest place to go. So and that's where we're left with. But and then he stopped in Guyana on his way to Brazil and was like, oh, this is, and the Guyanans, they were like, their government were very open with them. It was a British colony at the time.
It helped. He greased a lot of palms.
Did he? I didn't read that. So tell me more.
Yeah. So he was able to.
Juicy stuff.
They started the construction, and apparently he had provided. He made an argument saying, "Hey, look, I've got all this money. I'm going to invest in Guyana, and I need you to loosen immigration restrictions." So he greased so many palms that the Guyanese officials granted the temple permission to import certain items duty free. Do you know what he imported?
No. People?
Guns.
Oh, guns. Perfect.
Yeah. And drugs.
This goes along with his Red Brigade.
Yes.
No cults complete without a hitman squad. You
need some strong men.
Yeah.
In that, right?
Yeah.
But because the Guyanans officials were so in his pocket, he was able, anybody who wanted to leave had a hard time of it, right? Because it's like, okay, well, how do you leave? Well, Guyana officials aren't going to help you.
Well, and that's it. I think that he felt it was safe there, right? Like he had some safety. It was like his cushion, so to speak, of they're American, but they're expats now. They're
However, the American,
done,
that was another angle they played with the Guyanese to avoid what was it? Guyana had a dispute with Venezuela.
Right.
And the idea was that if you were to set up a bunch of Americans near that disputed border, the chance of Venezuela rolling over because they don't want to anger the US.
Right. Especially have a large population of
we're talking what at its peak, 1,000 people about.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, most of those people died. So let's talk about the actual Jonestown now. So you have the people, they got there. Shit is not what they expect, and this is where shit starts to go sideways.
It is hard living. You are in jungle, and I got news for you. Trying to farm jungle, it's not fun.
It's a tough fucking go. And the people from Guyana are like, oh god, you guys are gonna starve to death. They're eating mostly rice, which is imported in,
which is fine, provided it's supplemented with things with actual nutrition. Rice will keep you alive until your teeth start falling out.
Yeah. So, but they started to do some things where the church delivered Jones's rambling monologues while the people worked via
in
megaphone.
the fields during the day.
Yeah. So you would listen to this guy. So this is where you start to go, these people are being socially programmed.
Yep.
It's happening. So they had to then go to mandatory propaganda classes
at night.
Yeah.
They would have to go off and go to night masses or something just bizarre.
Yeah. And it was enforced by the armed Red Brigade.
And you wonder about that. Were these people that were simply mercenaries that realized, hey, this is the side my bread is buttered on, or were these true believers?
No, I think they would be true believers. I think it'd be an honor, right, to be one of these select few that he trusts, right? His inner circle of trust, but yeah. And then people start to get fucking like, we got to get out of here. Right. So what do? They start sending letters.
Which are all their letters and phone calls are censored. However, some actually make it through.
A couple make it through
to get our buddy, the hero of our story.
Well, kind of. Senator, what's his fucking name? Leo Ryan. Leo Ryan. So so you've got enough people there that they've already people are talking, right? Family members are talking. They're going to their Congress. They're saying, shit's going on. Like, we're not getting any info back and forth. This is a time where, it's not internet time. Like, you get letters.
He was only a senator for like 5 years.
Was he really?
1973 to 1978.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's kind of weird because you look at it. I didn't read anywhere where it kind of became militant, because it does become militant very quick. Like, it must be very quickly, because there's armed guards. There's a lot.
I heard about the barbed wire. Now, whether that was true or not, there was actually letters from survivors saying there was no barbed wire, but
yeah, I don't know. It didn't really get into that.
What are you gonna do? Run into the woods and die?
Yeah. Well, one survivor says that it became an armed camp.
Yep.
Right. Ringed by volunteers with guns and machetes. Any outsiders, because people would get curious, and including people from America would, they're visiting Guyana and go check it out. I mean, why not? But they were not invited in. You're not one of us. So yeah. So then our hero, armed with his wits and little else,
and a camera crew,
is being told all these things. And then he says, fuck it, I'm going to go there. Why not? And he does. And they show up on November 17th, 1978.
Yep.
And they receive a warm welcome.
Dinner, entertainment. It was great.
Everybody, there was food and drink, and people were like, so they put on a good show. So Jones is like, you need to fucking be happy. Or shit's gonna hit the fan here. Yeah, so then the visit's called short because one of the residents tries to stab Mr. Ryan.
Which is funny because he was talking to residents and some of them actually were like, hey,
we need out of here.
Can we go with you, please? Yes. We're Americans.
So, and that's where he gets the attention then from the devout followers. And then, well, what happens? Somebody says, fuck this. We're gonna, try to stab him. He gets out alive. He's escorted back to their plane. And then what happens?
Okay, so here's where things get a little, I don't know, not crazy quite yet. So he brought several of the followers with him.
Yeah, Jones said, yeah, go ahead, take them.
Well, which makes sense, right? Why would you want dissidents? Go away. Okay, fine. But as we know with Jimmy, he does not take that well at all.
No, Jimmy inside is very angry right now.
Very angry. And at this point, by the way, Jimmy is literally a shell of himself by this date. He's been on a lot of drugs, just to talk about a lot of lewds. So here, let's see, what's the description? He's has a possible lung infection. He is abusing injectable Valium, Quaaludes, stimulants, and barbiturates.
Uppers and downers, baby, all day long.
He's lost 30 to 40 pounds, although apparently near this date, he actually looks kind of puffy, and they talk about swelling the extremities. He's had a couple strokes.
Oh,
wow. Yeah, this guy, and he doesn't sleep. Guess what? Turns out when you're all effed up on drugs, you don't sleep.
You're not a sleeper. Yeah.
So he is absolutely, so his natural, anger at betrayal has been amplified to 11 at this point, right? He's screwed up. Ryan, unfortunately, because of the people he was bringing back, had to get a second plane. So instead of leaving when he ought to have, he had to wait.
Right.
Well, that gave Jimmy time to stew. So Jimmy sends some of his Red Brigade guys.
Well, from what I read, they escorted them to the planes.
Yep.
Right. So they were there. They were like, oh yeah, well, it's not safe. We'll take you. And you're everybody's kind of nervous. Like all of the members are like, we're gonna get the fuck out of here. Then what happens?
Okay, so this is where I've read different accounts. In one case, you've got a dump truck driving up with more of the followers that jump out and start machine gunning things.
I did read that, but I don't think that's true.
I don't know if that's, this is one of the things I read. Ultimately, you have gunmen show up. Now, funny enough, when you talk about the guys who escorted them, one of the fellows who escorted them was a buddy named Larry Layton.
Right.
And this was one of the guys who escorted the senator back and was actually in the plane when
he got shot like multiple times.
Right. So you have gunmen show up, they're starting to shoot, and this guy actually turns and starts shooting
back.
No,
I don't remember that.
No, not shooting back. Larry Layton was the one person convicted of all this. So shooting. He was actually there, and he started shooting in the plane when the other gunmen showed up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there were wounded who were shot, and then they escaped. One from NBC, a woman,
and his aide actually, who funny enough took a spot later on.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy.
So,
but they were basically just peppered with fucking submachine gun rounds.
They did not spare any bullets. This was total accuracy by volume.
Yeah.
And poor Leo did not make out so well.
No, he was killed. There were survivors, because you got to remember there's 10 of these people who wanted to leave. Yeah. And some of them survived too. Jack Speary was his aide. He suffered 5 gunshots. Yeah, and is now congressman representing California's 14th district. And then Jones knows all hell is breaking loose, and
actually uses this to convince people. So a bit of a backstory. Turns out the Joneses were practicing this event called the White Night.
They were, and I wanted to get into that because
so why don't we go into that, because that sort of plays into this other part here.
Yeah, so survivors had talked about that, Jones had done this in the event that they were going to be taken over. They called it a revolutionary suicide.
I was going to say the term revolutionary suicide.
That's
similar to the idea where you have these Buddhist monks, for example, who light themselves on fire.
That's right.
They're sticking it to the man.
It's dying for the cause. Yep. And so there were a number. Now I don't know how many, but he was almost like Pavlov's salivating dogs, right? He was conditioning these people, and they actually would do dry runs, and people didn't know if it was like poison or not. So they go through this with the flavor aid, and they
not Kool-Aid, folks.
The flavor aid. Not Kool-Aid.
Flavor. The guy couldn't even spend the money on Kool-Aid.
No.
This is like puffed wheat versus sugar crisp.
So
sorry.
That's okay. Puffed wheat for puffed wheat.
And powdered milk.
Oh god damn. Anyway, I'm hard to get that out of my mind. So they practiced this and people would do it. And then they were all relieved because, well,
they didn't die.
They didn't die. So they had also, now I'm not sure how they did this, but they used a mixture of cyanide and put like a paralysis, put Nuxie out. That was a combination.
Okay, well, let me just
double check. Yeah, it made you pass out basically. The cyanide took. Well, what I found
cyanide and sedatives.
And sedatives, yeah. So what I found interesting is Jim Jones, because you can't just buy cyanide.
And they use that apparently on the children. So the mix of the cyanide and the sedatives were used in syringes on the throats of children.
Oh, okay. Well, he had to get a jeweler's license. Did you read about this?
I did read about that. I was like, that's how he acquired that much.
The amounts of cyanide.
He has one.
Yeah, he had a jeweler's license, so he could buy, because they use cyanide to clean jewelry. I had no idea. I had no fucking clue that cyanide was used. But you can buy cyanide if you are a jeweler for that purpose. And there's a certain amount. So he just kept buying cyanide and fucking stocking it up, and there you go. But
do you know what the symptoms of cyanide poisoning are?
No, I don't. Isn't it the white on your nails? Yeah.
Overall weakness, nausea, confusion, headache, difficulty breathing, seizure, loss of consciousness, or cardiac arrest. And it all depends on the dose. So I suspect Jimmy had it figured out that how much
they tested. So I don't know how they tested.
I don't know how they tested it either. It's not the internet, right?
No, this is not the only way you're going to test this is grab some unsuspecting Guyanian.
All those monkeys he was selling. He's like, I got to get rid of the monkeys.
Yeah, I think the monkeys were the people that live there. The fucking
I suspect
people's temple, and
I suspect he used them. Any dissidents, he figured out the dose. Because when you're planning out your white knight, your test firing, your suicide plan.
Yeah, I don't know. But so they were conditioned. Maybe there was a part of them that went, oh, this isn't gonna, but they're also confined with armed guards.
Not everybody went willing when the call went out to.
Right. I think there would have been pandemonium, and I didn't get into how many people were actually shot. Jim Jones.
It was a surprisingly small number from what I heard. I remember reading it somewhere, but you'd think it would be a larger number than the bulk of people did drink the flavor aid.
They did, yeah. But not all of them died. So one of the people that survived was this older woman who was like in bed sick.
She's the one who slept in. She
missed the whole thing. She gets up and it's like this eerie quietness because everybody's fucking dead.
There was another fellow who had a hearing aid who he was hard of hearing, so he didn't actually know they were all getting the death notice.
Weird.
Which because he advertised. So Jimmy goes on and basically he's telling people, okay, two things. One, we're all committing suicide, and FYI, we just killed a senator.
Oh yeah,
so the U.S. is going to come in and they're going to mutilate your corpses. Like, this is bad.
Yeah.
You're all screwed.
Yeah. You're
all only way
dead.
we can strike back, because he used that. Whether it was the intent of silencing Ryan was to use that as the excuse to do the suicide, But he leveraged it when he was talking about the suicide, saying, okay, by the way, we're all screwed. The US is going to roll in on us and screw us.
For sure.
You don't want to go to a US prison.
Or Guantanamo. Who knows?
Well, I don't know if they had Guantanamo, but you're in Guyana. So I suspect the Guyanese, the Guyanese, they probably don't have a great penal system that's awesome.
So more than 300 children were killed, which is pretty sad. And once again, 2/3 of the population were Black or African American. Not sure the term we should use, so I'll use both.
Hedge your bets. You are so going to get yourself in trouble.
I don't know.
I know what they used to call them. I'll use that term and every term since then.
No, I'm just trying. I don't know.
I don't know either.
So I'll
sorry to put you on the
safe.
spot, Phil.
Yeah.
I don't think you're racist.
The next morning, Guyanese, I'm not racist. God damn it. They've fucking come in, guns up ready, and everybody's dead.
It's like something out of a horror movie. Everybody. Now, okay, let's talk about everybody's dead. What about Jimmy? How did Jimmy make out?
Jimmy did not take the flavor aid. Jimmy took a bullet, whether it was by his own hand or someone else's. So much for being a messiah, because you're fucking dead, as you should be. But it's a crazy story. It's almost like unbelievable. It's because, well, you see these cults and it's so fucking crazy.
Well, you want to talk about crazy, right? So we have the flavor aid thing, which, you know, is not the first time people have gone off and drank poison, right? Okay, fine. Mass suicide by drinking poison. Okay. There was in Georgetown, Guyana, there was a people's temple there, which I guess might have served as one of the principal recruiting elements for the area so that they could come in, perhaps, because you're not flying into the compound, you're coming to an airfield. So you're going to the Georgetown temple and then you're being shuttled out to Jonestown, right?
Right.
Okay. Sharon Amos, she's there at the temple. Jones gets on the blower saying, hey, folks, white knight, time to do it. So the people who drank the Kool-Aid or the flavor aid got off kind of easy. So Sharon, basically, it was her and her 3 children.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So she had two young kids,
right,
and one older daughter. So she took her children upstairs. The 2 young kids slit their throats.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get this.
I didn't read about this at all.
Yeah, no, this is even worse. Okay. So she slit the throats of her young kids, which is pretty horrible, right? Once they were dead, her older daughter and her stood facing each other and cut each other's throats.
What the fuck?
I know. Oh, my dear Lord. Apparently, the only one crazy, or as crazy as Sharon, was her daughter, Leanne. I mean, the fact to stand across from your mother, knife on the razor on throat.
It's not even conceivable.
Exactly. And Leanne actually, she survived for several minutes. So the wounds were mortal, but she actually survived for several minutes afterwards. So she got to say, this was not as fast as I thought. I wish I drank the flavor aid.
These are people with families, like they were families. They're
all dead. Don't worry. So Sharon made sure everybody in her family was dead.
That's fucked, is what that is, and that's what these stories, like if you read, Branch Davidian or like
what's the solar, is it the ones out of Quebec? That was one Branch Davidian, the solar temple, or
I don't know.
There was another cult, similar idea to the Branch Davidians. Big thing's gonna happen. We're all gonna.
Yeah, but you can get people to do just about fucking anything, and it's surprising. And who knows? Maybe I'm not strong. Maybe I could fall victim to one of them. I mean, there were smart people. There were intelligent people that,
It's not going to be you, right?
But it's never you.
It's never you, right? Oh, you wouldn't fall for that. Tripe, you would be the one to say, no, what am I doing? Usually by the time you're down that rabbit hole,
it's too late.
Right? It's too late. You're already there. Yeah. If you didn't pull your chute when you're saying,
You want me to what now?
Well, not even what now. You're like, okay, this sounds cool, but you all look kind of odd. I think Spidey sense is tingling. I'm gonna back away. Once you
and
get into this, once you're moving to Guyana to set up your socialist compound.
Well, they were sold on the fact that it was going to be, like you said, a utopia. You know, it was going to be a utopian sort of place of worship and love and blah, blah,
would you like to
blah.
know some of the death letters?
Sure.
So some of the okay, what is it? Here we go. What's her name? Somebody named Moore said, I am at a point right now so embittered against the world that I don't know why I am writing this. Someone who finds it will believe I am crazy or believe in the barbed wire that does not exist in Jonestown. We died because you would not let us live in peace. Jonestown, the most peaceful, loving community that ever existed. Jim Jones, the one who made this paradise possible. Much to the contrary of the lies stated about Jim Jones being a power hungry, sadistic, mean person who thought he was God of all things. His hatred of racism, sexism, elitism, and mainly classism will prompt him to make a new world for the people, a paradise in the jungle. The children loved it. So did everyone else.
Yeah, and that sounds like.
And she's drinking Kool-Aid. So FYI, she did this before she drank the Kool-Aid. She's like, okay, right at the letter. All right, good.
The fact that you would end your own life based on the belief system of another human being is unfathomable to me. It doesn't, or your children. Forget about yourself for a minute.
Forget about yourself.
There's nothing I wouldn't do for my children. And
okay, so
that well is deep.
However, let's try to put ourselves in perspective here. Okay.
Sure.
You're in a terrible situation.
Right.
Have you ever read The Road with Cormac McCarthy?
No.
Cormac McCarthy. Essentially, terrible thing happens, world's screwed, and this guy.
I think I watched the movie.
Yeah, fair enough.
That was a sad fucking movie.
Yes. Well, it does end on a slightly brighter note because when he's dying.
Yeah.
Well, but at least the kid isn't standing there. The reason why there was one bullet left in the gun was so the kid could kill himself.
Yeah.
Because the dad was like, I don't know what to do. He that idea that if you knew your kids were going to be captured, sold into slavery, murdered, mutilated, whatever horrible thing you could imagine to your kids, wouldn't you say, I'm not going to let that happen. I am going to make the brave choice. I'm going to keep you from suffering.
I don't know. I don't know if I could. I don't know. Maybe I could. Maybe I couldn't.
But think about it in that perspective, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of my own perspective. Like,
they're starving. There's no food.
Yeah.
They're going to starve to death.
I guess that I have hope.
Well, everybody. So that's the thing, right? Hope is a beautiful thing because you hold on to it, right? It keeps you going, and it keeps you going day after day until
my dad used to say, "Hold hope in one hand and a shit in the other. Which one weighs more?" Whimsical fella, but
the wisdom of Dell.
He would tell you that, you need to figure things out. You can't just wait and hope for things to happen.
No, and you also, I'm a firm believer, and you shouldn't give up. Liz talks about the apocalypse. She says, you know what? If it's, I hope we go in the nuke. I'm like, so my bunker is no good, is what you're saying?
We're gonna hunker in my bunker. Yeah,
but do you want to live in that world, right? Where it's like, okay,
no, I get it. And to be in that situation, like even if you look at the Holocaust and you look at like the crazy, like these people didn't give up, and the craziness of what they must have went through and watched it separated from the children, like how horrific, I listen to people talk about all the problems that they have, and then I think we have no problems. We have first world problems, my friend. The Wi-Fi's bad in the area of the house you're in. Like I remember growing up, and it like as bad as it I thought it could have been, it wasn't anywhere near. And like say, people in Syria or any of the
Afghanistan or any of these the whole places. Middle. Just draw a circle around the Middle East and say there, except for Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. Well, and even then,
it depends on who you are.
The poor are poor. The rich are very rich. But it's hard to fathom like what, and I believe this Jim Jones guy started off thinking that he was going to change the world and he was going to do a good job. And like you said earlier, they all, the measure of a man is when you give him enough power to see what he does.
It reveals all that.
It reveals all that. Yeah. So, but he is an enigma for how he wanted to treat people well and equal rights, and then all like be willing to sacrifice over 900 people. I don't know the exact number. I think it was 918 people in total. It was fucking crazy.
Let me see. I'll see if I can pull up. Now, everything I've read, there's actually several. 909.
909. Okay, there you go.
At the settlement. Now, I'm assuming the 4 that died in Georgetown would make that 913, but I don't know.
I think it was 918 with all the people that died on the tarmac.
Oh, gotcha. So all taken.
Maybe that's the number I'm thinking.
I think that sounds right. That all the taken together.
Yeah,
because that actually works out.
But it's just a man that was capable of such good, and then you think like you had 918 souls at your disposal, and you fucking like took all of them. Jesus, hallelujah! Fuck.
He did think he was Jesus.
He did think he was Jesus. He thought he was fucking God, and that is why religion is dangerous. Yeah.
It can give purpose, it can create good works, but unfortunately, in some cases, you have it where it also, which is again the irony that you look at how often religion is used as a method of inequity and injustice, right? And here was Jim saying, you know what, I'm going to turn Christian socialism into a thing where we're going to integrate everybody, and where
it's got to be a beautiful world out there.
Beautiful.
And on that note,
your cancer's cleared.
What are we doing next week?
Okay, so I think we need to bring it back a bit. So diving down the Jim Jones well, Knights Templar.
Didn't we do Knights Templar?
I hope we didn't. I know we've talked about it. I don't think we've actually done the Knights Templar. Well,
let's do it.
We haven't. Let me just double check. I'm pretty sure.
No, I think you're right. I don't think we have.
I don't have a tab in my notebook for it. So I've been wanting to do Knights Templar since Christ was a cowboy.
Okay, well, we'll do it.
Okay,
and on that note, thank you very much for watching the OC. I'm Phil, my co-host Corey. Thank you for listening to the Jonestown Massacre. Very sad story. And I hope we didn't offend anyone who is of color, black or white or whatever the case may be. I don't know.
That was Phil Orton, the chief apologist of Ordered Chaos.
Oh, you used my last name.
Oh, shit. You got to edit that out.
I do. All right. So we'll start over. Hold on. You ready? Thank you very much for watching. I am Phil. This is my co-host Corey. And tonight we talked about Jonestown Massacre. It was very sad. And next week, Knights Templar.
Knights Templar, baby.
Let's do it. Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
All right. We'll see you next week. Good night.
Take care, folks.